April marks Bowel Cancer Awareness Month. It's a disease, of course, which claims 16,000 lives in the UK every year. Been in the news this week too, BBC journalist Jeremy Bowen going public with his diagnosis. We obviously wish him very well indeed. Today though, we've invited back campaigner and broadcaster Deborah James, known to many as Bowel Babe, I love that, who's been so open about living with stage 4 bowel cancer. She's here with Dr Hilary. Always a joy to see you.
Thank
Honestly,
you.
you just, that smile, you just brighten up the room, you really do. Living with cancer, we said. The thing is, it can happen to anybody.
Absolutely, it happened to me. So for those that don't know my story, at the age of 35, so just over 2 years ago, I had that blindsiding moment where I was diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer. So that meant that by the time it had already been diagnosed, not only did I have a tumour in my bowel, I already had tumours in my lungs. So my chances of survival rapidly plummeted. Now, the reality is that I was a fit, young, healthy 35-year-old. And I don't know about you, but the perception for me of bowel cancer was not that.
No, it's, you usually think of it as someone slightly older who maybe isn't taking care of themselves, and that's not true.
Absolutely, and we know that there are risk factors that can increase our chances of getting bowel cancer. But it doesn't mean that ultimately it can still happen to any one of us. And we know that more and more young people are still getting bowel cancer. Actually, about 2,500 people under the age of 50 are getting it
it's really worrying,
each year, which is really, really worrying.
It really is. But you're saying it's about knowing your own body. It's about having more awareness. And it's actually about people like you telling us these things.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think people might look at me and say, oh, you don't look like you've got
cancer.
Great.
You look well.
And then they might not even associate bowel cancer with me. And I think actually the more people like myself can talk about it, the reality is that it can happen to any single one of us. Really, really recently, I met a group of people who all have bowel cancer. It was part of a campaign that we've done for Bowel Cancer UK, which I know that we've got some pictures showing up on the screen, which are amazing, aren't they? And I think by looking at those images, I don't know about you, but I look at them, some of them are absolutely heartbreaking. They're from people who, there's a lovely picture of Margaret up there. She's holding a picture of her daughter Annabelle. Annabelle was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 36, a couple of weeks before me.
Oh gosh, that really hits home, doesn't it?
Yeah, she died 6 months later, which I think is just heartbreaking.
It is, and it's that thing of, for goodness sake, don't die of embarrassment. You know what the British are like, anything to do with bottoms or poo or anything like that. We all go, oh, I don't want to know, and get all silly about it, and it's just daft.
Well, a recent survey showing about half of people won't go and see their GP for initial consultation because they're too embarrassed if it's something to do with their guts and their bowels. They
it's crazy, isn't it? Because doctors have seen it all.
Oh my goodness.
Seen it all, heard it all.
Doctors are completely unembarrassable. We see it as part of the body. And what I would encourage people to do is say, look, come and use the language that you're used to, whether you call it number 2, poo, crap, whatever. Just talk about the language that you know. Don't try and put it in medical terms and dress it up as bowel movements and motions because stools and things. That's doctors' terminology. Use the terminology that you're familiar with, and it's fine to introduce a bit of humour to the consultation. Have a laugh about it, break the ice, but be frank about your symptoms, because if you've got the early symptoms of bowel cancer, the doctor wants to know about it so he can investigate and save lives.
So what are we looking out for?
Okay,
you cannot say this often enough.
No, absolutely. The first thing is any persistent and unexplained change in your normal bowel habit. So you might be a once-a-week person or you might be a once-a-day person, but if it changes persistently for more than a few weeks, you need to go and talk to the doctor about that, because that's an early sign. The next thing you want to look for is any blood from your bottom or blood mixed with the motions, with the poo. OK, so it could be on the surface of the poo, it could be blackened, and it could be part of the poo. That means bleeding from higher up the bowel. Look for any sign of blood and report it. Don't assume it's piles or hemorrhoids, because people have died doing that. Don't do that. Go and talk to the doctor.
Makes perfect
sense.
Third
thing is any abdominal lump or tummy pain that's there and is bothering you. Don't ignore it. Don't think it's IBS. Go and talk to your doctor. And probably lastly, unexplained loss of appetite or loss of weight, tiredness, which might be the result of slow, gradual blood loss, which you haven't noticed.
OK. So all of those, I mean, even just some of those or all of those, you have to. You know what's been really good? We've got such a big response. We always get a huge response when you know, and Deborah, it's brilliant. It really, really is. And you have, as we know, know saved lives. We know that. And I know that your podcast, which still goes on, I know that Rachel Bland died, which was terribly, terribly sad, but you're doing it in her name, you know, as well. And your wee boy's been on that too.
He has, talking about the impact.
Idea.
And this is what we have to remember. This disease impacts families.
Absolutely.
And, you know, for me, because I was diagnosed at a late stage, I don't know what my future holds. You know, we're here, we live. I talk about living with it.
I know.
And I want to provide hope to people. But there's also the reality, and the reality is that when this disease is caught early, the chances of survival are huge.
Right.
Like when it's caught at stage 1 or 2, over 90% of people will survive. When it's caught at stage 4, if we have to look at the real harsh statistics, my chances of survival for 5 years are 8%. And I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
And you can see, you know, just even when I overthink it, it's heartbreaking actually. But I'm here.
No, you are,
and I feel well actually.
You
for
do,
once.
and you look well, because I know that with
Thank
the
you.
treatment you're getting, you know, there are side effects, of course there are.
Yeah.
With this horrible rash, and you must feel absolutely exhausted sometimes. We can see that, and I love the honesty that you're showing that, and you're saying, well, this is what happens to you.
This
You are
is the
such an
road.
inspiration.
You know, this is what happens, but actually don't be scared, because it will pass, and then and for you, right now, you're feeling okay.
I've got some really good news recently, actually. So despite kind of all the treatment that I've been through, actually my cancer in my recent scan last week is stable. Now, for anybody that lives with metastatic cancer, being stable is a really good thing.
Fantastic.
And as a result, I've actually got an operation on Monday to remove some more tumours. But I think that's really, really positive news. So I think for me, I'm hoping that by sharing my story, the highs and the lows. So I might be sitting here going, you know, check your poo one moment and dancing around, but the next moment, you know, that's the reality with the skin rash and, you know, not knowing whether you've got a future. But ultimately, all I want to know is by sharing my story, hopefully I can give people hope.
You're making a big difference.
Oh, you're making a huge difference. We're going to put loads of information. I know, Hilary, you've got kits there as well. We're going to put loads of information on our website, as we always do. You're amazing.
Thank you for having me. I love being here.
No, it's a joy. And if it gets people talking about somewhere so silly, and the message is, do not die of embarrassment.
Don't die of
For goodness
embarrassment.
sake.
No.